It's time for the Weekly Biscuit. Well, tonight's biscuit of choice is the Humble Kit Kat. So on this second instalment of the Weekly Biscuit, let's have a look at what's been catching my attention. Okay, the first story I've selected this week is the male breastfeeding kit. This was a sort of puff piece that was around at the start of the week. And essentially, a young lady called Marie Claire Springham has, she's a design student, has developed a kind of a sort of artificial teat for men so that men can breastfeed their newborn babies. Now, why would this kit be needed? Well, apparently, a lot of men suffer from post-natal depression. And as I am a dad, twice over, my reaction to this is no, not really. You see, what happens having a baby in your life is disruptive. You know, I mean, I couldn't hang out with my mates going down the pub all the time. We have a new baby, new responsibilities. And of course, the baby takes up all your time and attention. Not just my time and attention, my wife's time and attention, which means the baby needs her a great deal, particularly in feeding, which means I can't get to spend quality time in my life with my wife and with my life larking around. That's just the nature of it. And with some men, they can get a little bit upset, a little bit depressed. Oh, my life's being disrupted. What am I going to do now? And everything's going to change. Nothing's going to be fun anymore. And you can go through that stage as a dad. But the solution to that is not putting a rubber teat on you and pretending that you can breastfeed like mummy can. That's not the solution. And the solution has existed all along. And that is, you cradle your baby in one hand and you have the bottle with its little rubber teat, and you put it in the baby's mouth and you go, there, son or daughter, yum, 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 yum. Yeah. And you talk to the baby and you may rock the baby and you hold the bottle at the correct angle, and that's what you do. You do not need this thing. Now, I did some background checking. And this Marie Claire Springham, as I said, is a design student. She's also quite an accomplished chorister, choral music singer as well. And she seems like look at a picture of her, you think, oh, this is a nice girl, nice English rose type, the type you could introduce to your parents. And so what I was thinking is either A, she's a really smart operator and she's developed this device because she is a design student, and she sees a sucker market. Quite literally, pardon the pun there, but she sees a group of men who might be conned into buying this thing, more moolah for her, or else she's hanging around with a lot of men who perhaps are a little bit too fond of soy-based food and drink products. If so, she needs intervening. We need to rescue her, and just say no, just don't do this. You don't want to be remembered for inventing this device. Seriously. Okay, moving on. Bloomingdale's, the famous New York department store. Oh yeah, you had to steal the show, didn't you? Ignore business cat back there. We've killed the cat, so now we can move on. So Bloomingdale's, the famous New York department store, and at this point I have to say, yes, it really does exist. It wasn't just created for friends, okay? So they got into trouble this week because they were selling a T-shirt that had fake news written on it, quite nice font, I thought. But anyway, got into trouble. With whom, you may ask? Well, with journalists. You see, a few journalists took the time to write to Bloomingdale saying that the T-shirt is very offensive because, as journalists, they are the bulwarks for democracy in these times of turmoil and strife and trouble and divisions in our society. To put out a message of fake news hurts journalists, wounds journalists, honest journalists who are doing such a good job, and it's just offensive, and the T-shirt has to go. And Bloomingdale said, well, yeah, of course, we don't want to cause any offence, so we're going to withdraw the T-shirt. Now, it seems a bit weird that now a job category is now protected You know, we used to have, race, gender, all these things, religion protected, but now a whole profession wants to be protected alongside the others. And it seems strange that the profession is one that has gone out of its way to undermine itself in recent years. But the thing is that we all know that there's fake news. If you're watching this channel, you're very aware of it. You're somebody who probably pulls their hair out a couple of times a day over some fake news story. But the thing is that the media outlets, particularly the ones that are crying foul and crying, oh, they're hurt and all that, the Jim Acosta crowd, they know what they're doing isn't strictly honest. But they're in a war, damn it. And it's more important to win the war than to tell the truth. If they have to bend the truth out and out, lie, misrepresent things, so be it, because the war against Trump, against Brexit, against the populists, against the horrible oi polloi, the Herberts of this world, the war is too important to stick to the truth and to credit the other side with a valid point. This is what we're doing. I know this because I spoke to somebody, this a couple of years ago, spoke to somebody I knew who is on the left and moving even more and more to the left, which has really strained our friendship to the point where it's almost broken. But I said, you cannot put out these fake news stories on your Facebook and Twitter feeds. And he came back to me and said, damn it, the issues are too important to stick to the truth all the time. And that's what we are. This is the whole thing about, oh, Bloomingdale's can't sell this T-shirt because journalists are so committed to democracy. Yeah, and they're prepared to lie in order to preserve what they view as their democracy, okay, their process. So this is just, I consider it more thrashing about on the part of the media, who are rapidly losing credibility, but they can't see what they're actually doing. They because they think they're in this war. This is what you've got to remember about when you're dealing with the left, progressive left, mainstream press, is that they think they're in a moral war crusade, and they don't really care about standards of honesty. If it means that what they can get away with will give them a victory in this fight. So there you go. I do believe that you can get the T-shirts online while stocks last. Another story that hits a little bit closer home to me as a former media person, and that is the BBC announced that 1 in 6 of their on-screen talent now has to be gay. The comedian Konstantin Kasim jokingly said, well, in that case, the BBC are going to have to sack a load of people in order to meet that 1 in 6 target. It does seem a bit odd, but, it's part of this thing that now only gay people can act gay parts. It doesn't really matter. I mean, this is just another kick in the teeth to meritocracy. Throughout my life growing up, there's always been gay celebrities on TV. I mean, in the old days, they didn't used to reveal publicly their sexuality, but you kind of knew, the word got around. But if they were good enough, nobody cared. Nobody cared about Larry Grayson's orientation or John Inman's or anybody else growing up. If they were fun, if they were entertaining, we all liked them. And this brought me to another thing about coming out. Now, a lot of people don't want to talk about their sexuality. Even to this day, people don't really want to come out. People don't want to admit their orientation. I think not that long ago, the late TV presenter Dale Winton was always very coy about it. Everybody knew, but he didn't really want to delve into it. And when I see a headline like 1 in 6, this new BBC policy, is that going to force people to openly declare their sexuality where they would not be comfortable of doing so, or that they don't think it's particularly relevant for them to say what their sexual orientation is? I think this is a policy that actually intrudes too much on people's personal lives. Their private lifestyles, their sexual orientation really shouldn't be an issue. and the BBC are making an issue where one shouldn't exist. So this is a virtue signalling policy that I think actually could be more harmful to individuals than actually beneficial. And finally on the biscuit, I want to talk about the school strike that happened in the UK last Friday. This was where some schools took the day off from going into class and taking a trip to London in order to protest about climate change and to protest the government's seemingly inaction on climate change. Now, I don't think climate change was really the issue here. I think this was a deliberate attempt of very left-wing teachers and schools in order to teach children about activism. It wasn't really about climate change. It could have been any issue, any hot button issue of the day. I think they just chose climate change. But the real purpose was to get children, very young children in some cases, used to the idea of direct action and activism. And I think this is very bad. I mean, what I saw from the protests, everybody had these placards. All the children had placards, save our planet, I'm dying, do something about it. And they looked like that was prompted. It didn't look like it was generally coming from the children. It may have been their handwriting, but I think the words and the sentiment were given to them. You saw some posters of the children holding up that had the socialist worker logo on them, so we know where that originated from. And then there were some who were in their teens who were using swear words towards the Prime Minister. Now, we've all used a swear word or two towards the Prime Minister at some time, but you're thinking these are school children at school, and if you wanted to genuinely get the government and the Prime Minister to engage in the subject of climate change, you don't insult them. I mean, I don't know of any situation where you get action, where you get somebody wanting to come and help you by insulting them, swearing at them, abusing them. This is just activism, pure and simple. A couple of weeks ago, it was Anna Soubry's a Nazi, and Anna Soubry got all het up and worked up just by being called a Nazi by protesters. And other people are saying, well, we can't have abuse towards our elected officials. It's getting out of hand. I think elected officials should cop the flak from the public, but a few weeks ago, people were saying, oh, you can't have this. But now those same people are saying, oh, well, this is a children's movement. Listen to the children, as they write F. Theresa May, wave those banners around. And it's a huge double standard. But it's understandable as a double standard when you see where it's coming from. And this is just the hard left using children and teaching them activism, just using them, and this is wrong. If you're a parent, don't give permission for this. Watch what your schools are teaching your children and how they're teaching your children. Keep on it. Ask your children when they come home, well, what are you learning in school? And it's not just English and maths. Ask them what they're learning in science. Ask them what they're learning in history in particular. Ask them what they're learning in civics. And if you see a party political bent, and it doesn't matter which way it goes, actually, I think your choice of your politics is something that you choose and you formulate yourself. You shouldn't have a school indoctrinating you. And I worry about those children. What if they say no? What if they say, I don't want to be a part of this? This doesn't fit right with what I believe. Are the schools going to punish some way or use abuse, ridicule, kind of blanking out, no platforming tactics in our classrooms, in our schools, to kind of shame children who say, no, I don't want to be an activist. I'm not necessarily a socialist or a Marxist. I've got issues about these kind of political ideologies. And, parents, if you are a parent of a child, stay on top of what your school is teaching your children. Just don't look at their homework, just take an active interest. And parents have more power over schools than you think. You can go to the governors, become a school governor. My wife's a school governor, and become a school governor and find out what is being taught, how it's being taught, because this is very important. And this is just another example of how the progressive hard left just view families and children with utter contempt. They're just tools to be used to make their political points. And really, for me, that takes the biscuit. Know what I forgot to do at the start of the video? Evening all.